A very warm welcome to this video where we are discussing certain special aspects of space clearing and clearing your workplace and homes. This is part of a sequence of our interactions where earlier we have already talked about what is the need of healing a home or a workplace, how there are some houses when they get detrimental energies, they turn out to be divorce houses, sick houses, etc. Also, we have had an interaction where we talked in detail regarding some of these negative pollutants like attachments, water vanes, and thought forms. If you haven't watched those videos, I will leave a link to those videos in the description below so that you can watch them. Now today, continuing from where we left in our earlier talk, we are going to talk about certain more of these energy pollutants which cause detrimental effects for houses, workplaces, and people in general. Today, we are going to talk about curses, spells, power artifacts, and psychic cords. And I have a very special guest again with me to talk about all these things, all these energy pollutants and how to clear them. He is Adrian Incledon-Webber, who is the author of many books, including Heal Your Home and Spirit and Earth. He has been the Vice President of the British Society of Dowsers, and it gives me great pleasure to have you with me again, Mr. Adrian.
Thank you, Prabal, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you again.
You know, about 20 years ago, when I started my work in astrology, people used to visit me and they used to ask, Guruji, or this is the term which they used to use, do you see any kind of black magic spells which are impeding our progress? And I used to just shed this off as a mere suspicion or a superstition. And I just used to tell them, you just go work hard, do your best, and leave the rest to the Almighty. This kept on happening for 5-6 years. Then something popped up in my mind that there might be something more to it than what my understanding at that particular point in time was. So I read about it, and then I remember my first case. So there was a couple who used to come to me, but they didn't have any children. So this lady used to ask me every time that, do I have any kind of spell on me because of which I'm not able to bear children? I did the things which I studied, and I could find a spell. So I said, yeah, I do sense something. So you go home, I'll do something tonight, and let's talk about it after 1 or 2 days in our next interaction. So it was nighttime, and I found out a little bit of details, as you also have mentioned in your book, regarding the spell, and then tried to clear her out of that particular spell. And once I met her after 2 days, she revealed to me that that night she had some kind of bleeding, some discharge of blood, but that blood was not normal. It was a little clotted. And in the next 60 to 70 days, she conceived. So that was my first a little ray of hope, a light into this amazing world of energy healing. So you have been into this for the past so many years. Kindly give our viewers a first-hand account on what these curses and spells are, what they can do, how they can play with the lives of people, and what we can do about it to make sure that we are not haunted by these negative energies.
Okay, it's amazing what we as human beings can manifest. Of course, healing is obviously the other side of the coin from some of the darker energies that we can also produce as human beings. I find a lot of spells can be very subconscious. I find, let me quantify the difference between curses and spells. Now, a spell to me can be almost instant. If somebody bumps into you in the street and knocks you over, then, automatically you can almost put a spell on them by going, I really don't like that person. I hope he kind of, I don't know, hurts himself in the next few minutes. It can be so quick. But I find with curses, they tend to be very much more of somebody sitting down and really starting to send some bad thoughts and bad energies your way. over sort of several days, several weeks, or several months. So I tend to find spells can be removed a lot quicker than curses. Curses tend to be something that are a lot deeper. And, where one's subconscious, the other one is this. A curse is very much of a conscious decision to sit down and send bad thoughts or bad actions somebody else's way. So if I do find when I'm working with clients that there is a spell, I always ask the question, when did this happen? Try and find a date.
Right.
And then normally once I found that date, I do my very best, and hopefully upstairs will be listening to what I'm asking to give me some idea as to who it was that actually put that spell on somebody. Now, a lot of times it's jealousy, it's envy via work. Somebody's got a position at work that this person's been working really hard to achieve themselves, and they get passed over by somebody who's perhaps new in the company. They can just sit there and just look at that person and sending bad thoughts to them, which of course can make them feel very uncomfortable in the office or the workplace. You can start getting headaches, start feeling very unwell. So that is a classic case. Also down to envy. Somebody drives past you in a nice sports car, or they're driving down the motorway and cut you up, and you're not going to send them some nice thoughts. So it can be very lightweight, but once it's in there, it can cause people a lot of psychological and physical problems.
Mm-hmm.
But curses, to me, are so much deeper, and they can go through generations as well. It can be a curse on the land. So, any members of the family living on that land in the future will undergo problems, the same problems that their parents had, and their parents before them, and the parents before that. Again, a lot of that can be down. And the one big case that I found is that, we were talking a bit earlier about plots of land, is that there were two houses, and there was a big garden in between, which one particular house owned. So they fenced it off, and they went for planning permission to put a new house in there, or a new bungalow in there, which they got. Obviously, the neighbor next door was very unhappy the fact that they were going to go for planning permission. And I think every day would sit there and send some really bad thoughts these people's way. Now, they got planning, the bungalow was built. The people who had the plot of land eventually moved, but of course the curse stayed on the actual house itself. The next couple moving in there felt very unwell within a few days and wondered what was going on. They were old clients of mine, so they called me and said, what's happening? We felt so good about moving in. Within days, we all went down with coughs, with colds, terrible headaches, really feeling unwell. Picked up the curse from the person next door, told them about it, and worked on it. And they said, yeah, he's not particularly nice to us. However, we popped round and we popped a card through his door saying who we were, and he's welcome to come round and see us or meet us. We lifted the curse, and all of a sudden, within a few days, they all felt better. The person came round, and they then became best of friends. But it was that jealousy and that envy that A, it wasn't his building plot to sell, and B, that it might disturb the peace and quiet of his own property, which was untrue in the end. Oh, yes, there was some noise from the building work when it happened, or when it went, how long it went on for. It didn't last for many months. So that's a classic case of the jealousy. Again, it's really down to money for a lot of people. The heavier curses, we can look at it maybe over here. You have the pictures of the witches with a big cauldron, putting the sort of the legs of frogs and the eyes of snakes in there and stirring it all up. I think that's quite old-fashioned, a bit like Hamlet with Shakespeare. But, if you just sit down there every day and send bad thoughts to somebody, it's going to help. It's going to really hurt people over a set period of time. And again, it's just worth trying to find out who put the curse in the first place, how long ago it happened, and then you can start to work on it. And of course, a lot of these people who have put curses on over the years have now passed away. So you then have to work very much with their higher self. and enlisting your higher self in the higher realms to be able to talk to them, to be able to say, look, the curse is no longer valid. Can we now, with your help and with the help of the archangels and Vishnu and Ganesh, whoever we work with, to be able to lift this curse and be able to allow the new families to actually live in peace, balance, and harmony.
Very nice, very nice. You have given many points in your comments regarding curses and spells. The first off was that, curses are conscious, while these spells are mostly subconscious or unconscious.
Yep.
However, here what we have is a special variety of curse in India, which we call black magic spells, where you have to go to a person because that particular person would understand what exactly needs to be done, which is called some kind of a tantra or something, which you were talking about, those animals or using some plants or animals to cause some kind of a hex or some those kind of things which they know probably. I don't know much about. But in that particular case, these spells would be consciously done.
Yes.
So this was my doubt. When you talk about spells, you said it was unconscious. I think what you meant was sometimes when we curse, like in my case, there was in the neighborhood, there used to live an elderly gentleman, and he had a little shop. He was a realtor, and some girl came and she parked the car right in front of his door. And once the girl came, he confronted her and said that you should not park the car over here. This is not a parking space, to which the girl replied in a very impudent manner, in a very harsh manner. So this guy could not do anything. So he said, okay, I curse you that your car will meet an accident.
Yes.
And this is what he told me. He said that I can't say anything to that girl because I could not do anything. At least I said, I am cursing you so that you don't repeat this mistake again for any other person.
Yes.
So here in this part of the world, I feel that spells are also, part of them are also done consciously. Another very interesting aspect which you said was that curses can be intergenerational. So it might be so that one person is bearing the curse of his father or his forefathers. And also that you mentioned that once a person has passed away, if he had given some kind of a curse, maybe that you did not have nice relations with your wife and now the wife is no more. So still there is a possibility that when we do the healing work, we do with the higher self of the wife so that, the things can be passed up.
Yes.
But when we talk about, intergenerational curses, there is a very important thing which I'm able to recall. Last year, there was a person who came to me and his business was not running well. So he just showed to me that this is the ring which I am wearing. He had a very nice gold ring, and it was by a company called Cartier. And he said,
very nice.
Yeah, this was given to me by my father-in-law. I said, oh, that's very nice. Can I see that? So I just saw the ring and I could feel the sensitivity. My hands are sensitive, so I can feel the negativity very easily. So I could feel some kind of negativity on the ring. And which brings to me this memory that then I did something to make it okay, and then I gave it back to him, and then the business restarted, etc. But which brings me to this next topic of power artifacts, that there might be some articles which a person has, which are creating problems for that person, and the person might not even know.
Absolutely.
So can you just elaborate on these power artifacts? What do we mean by it? How do they affect us negatively? And then what can people do in order to prevent the negative effects of these kind of power artifacts?
Okay, we can. Can I just go back with curses and spells? What I try and do with my clients is almost to delineate between the two or separate them out. I think curses have become very much part of sort of modern day language. So I like just to really say to my clients, look, a curse is very much deeper than I would say this is just really mainly for the book, so that you can try and sort of split them up to say, right, a spell is this, and it can be very instant, but a curse to me is very much deeper. But of course, in modern language, if you curse somebody or shout at them or swear at them, that can be very much the same thing. So it was a way of really trying to, a bit like with the energy lines, with earth energy lines and dynamic lines and fault lines, they all contain very, very similar aspects of energy, slightly different, but the same with curses, really just trying to split up to show people this is what's happened here, but that's what's happened there. So just to really try and say to people, that's how I look at it. But of course, it's really down to the meaning of the word for most people.
And then you go ahead in the book and you also mention about how we can get rid of it. But at least
Absolutely.
our viewers can start off with, this forgiveness exercises.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
either some healer can do that for them, or at least they can do forgiveness to the person who's causing them those curses, so
Yep.
that they don't invite more of those curses for them from that particular person.
Yeah, it's what we call fighting fire with fire. It's much easier to be able to send unconditional love to somebody, although that's very difficult. But that's why with the book there's the big healing section at the back, because I really wanted people to be able to help themselves. And okay, if there's a problem, they can come to you, or they can come to me, or anybody else that's kind of that I've trained or you've trained up. But it is so difficult. But if you take it steady, you work your way through it. But of course, with many people, they can normally pinpoint themselves when that particular problem happened. And say, like you with the lady that couldn't get pregnant, that is a classic family curse.
Yes.
So a lot of these are around. Yeah, I found a lot when I've been working on Indian families. I have found a lot of curses that have been put on from mother-in-laws, and yeah. As much as I
Right.
love my mother-in-law, she wouldn't do that, but it can be a very much of a jealousy thing.
Yeah, when you don't listen to your mother-in-law, then this might be resulting in some kind of a curse in private, which
Absolutely.
a healer might be able to disclose to you and then get rid of it.
Yes, exactly.
And
So power artifacts, it's for me, it's a fascinating aspect to life that, everything you touch, you will leave an essence of yourself on that particular article. Now, even, we have a lot of charity shops over here. You can buy secondhand clothes, secondhand books. Obviously, it's a nice way of recycling something that you don't need. But of course, if you buy a particularly tearful or like a romantic novel and the hero dies at the end, it's very emotional. Of course, the first person that read that book, or the second person or the third person, a lot of that emotion is going to sink into the book. So you pick it up as a sensitive person and you start to get affected by it. But that's very low level stuff. It's very easy when something comes into your house, is just to ask for a beam of light from upstairs to come into the book or whatever it may be, and just remove all the detrimental or inappropriate energies that may be there. So that's a very easy way of clearing it. But the heavy stuff, to give you an example, a very good friend of mine, we were doing some healing on his house, and I picked up this problem with his dining table. Now, normally with dining tables, because a lot of the families gather around in very not somber moments, but in a very formal way. I know it used to happen in our house, and it was always a time when my father had always asked questions, how are you getting on at school? Yeah, I'm fine, Dad. Okay. So I didn't think very much of your school report last week. Right. Okay. And after a while, it just got very heated. So I used to I never liked sort of Sunday lunches with families, because, all that emotion would come up. But later I found that a lot of that emotion would sink into dining room tables. And as soon as you sit in that particular spot yet again, you pick up on everything that's happened before. But it wasn't the case with this table. I found out from this gentleman, he'd bought it from London when he lived there. So I looked at this table and I rate all these artifacts between, if you like, -1, which is fairly lightweight, up to -10, which is then getting very, very dark, very, very heavy. and it was about a -6 or -7, so it was pretty much up the chart. And I dowsed a date, and it was kind of really sort of late 1930s, early 1940s. And so I said, was the table in London at the time? Yes, it was. And all I got was an image of the family during air raids when the bombers were coming across to bomb London. Because the nearest air raid shelter was quite a few hundred yards down the road, they used to shelter under the table, just in case. I mean, it probably wouldn't have saved them. But of course, the fear, the anxiety, the worry that they were going to die every time an air raid went off sank into the table. And of course, my poor friend brought this, and they never, ever had a nice Sunday meal around it that everybody enjoyed. There was always something that went on, something that got spilt. So we had to do a healing on this dining table, and it's still in his house, and they're having much better times around it. So it's that sort of thing that can happen. Anything that you don't like, a bit like the gentleman's ring that you worked on, you don't know who wore it. If the person who wore it beforehand died, not a particularly nasty death, perhaps they were dying of cancer, and they wore the ring until the day they died, and it was then taken off before they went to a funeral or to a funeral pyre. That ring will hold all the emotion, all the agony of the person who's worn it beforehand. And of course, you put it on, you're sensitive, and very shortly afterwards, you're going to start picking up on the vibrations of that person and begin to feel unwell. So really, anything that comes into your house, anything new, because you don't know where it's made, you don't know whose hands it's passed through, who perhaps tried it on in the shop before you bought it. So it's always worth doing a general cleansing before you bring it into the house.
Excellent.
Now,
this is such an important thing which you just told, because it never came to my mind in such a huge way, that even if you're buying a second-hand book, the person who would have reading it must have left a lot of emotions. And if he was suffering from some grave diseases, then that kind of agony, anguish would be carried on by the book. So it makes more sense to clear off any used stuff which a person gets before he actually tries and uses it.
Absolutely. And of course, it can also down to religious artifacts. I mean, I worship the Buddha, I worship the Maitreya Buddha, Ganesh, and many other gods, if you like, that I work with, or who allow me to work with them. But of course, you go in, somebody gives you an artifact, you've got to make sure that it's clear of all past energies.
Right.
They can come from unhappy houses. Just because you put a beautiful religious artifact in your home, it doesn't mean to say it's going to spread beautiful light through your home, because it might have come from a very, very detrimental environment. So, really anything that comes in. I mean, it can be fun things as well, Prabal. We're not looking just at really detrimental things. There was one that you can actually self-sabotage yourself. There was this delightful lady that I work with and worked with many, many years ago, who's quite a well-known artist over here in England. And as I worked through her house, I picked up this power artifact, which was a painting on her wall. And it was lots of different blues, and mainly blues, but so many different colored blues. And I said, it was the actual frustration of the artist who painted it that caused the painting to be a power artifact. It was about -4, -5. And she came back and said, it was me, I painted it. And she said, you're exactly right. I just felt so frustrated that I painted it and overpainted and overpainted. And I really don't like the painting, but my father loves it, hence the reason why it's hanging on the wall. I'm working with her at the moment. She's had some trees chopped down in the garden. And every time I talked to her, I said, have you been nice to that painting? She said, yes. And I said, you haven't been. It's still -2. We got it cleared, but you're still not being nice to your painting. You need to say good morning, painting, every time you walk past. But, she said, I will do my very best. So you can have these fun things as well that come through that put a smile on people's faces. But it's really about anything that comes into your house can easily be a power artifact, a piece of furniture, anything you bring into the house.
I remember, Adrian, one of the fun incident which happened this year with me. There's this lady, and she had to go to Sweden to meet her sister, and she could not because of some reason or the other. And then she calls me up and she says that, I am afraid that this sister of mine who's living in Sweden would be giving me a curse because I'm not going there. So can you do something about it just to make sure that I don't get any kind of curses from her? Because she arranged for the visa, she arranged for the tickets, and then at the last moment, if you say no to a person for no fault of hers, then the other person is bound to curse you. And
Yes.
she had studied from me a little regarding all the energy work. So she said that please help me to make sure that I don't get any curses from her. I said, okay, that's not a problem. I'll do that. So one fine evening, I am just looking for any kind of curses, but I could not find any curse. Although what happened was that I found a psychic attack. And what I did was I removed the psychic attack and I just was about to message it to her that I have done this kind of a healing and this is what I have found, etc. And in the meanwhile, I got a patient, so I got busy for the next 15-20 minutes. Within those 15-20 minutes, this lady calls me up and she says, what have you done? I said, why? What happened? She said, I've been suffering for this back problem for the past 3-4 days, and suddenly now it has gone, totally gone. I said, yeah, because that particular psychic attack which I cut was somehow related to that particular region where you were suffering the pain. So sometimes, yes, you are right. It becomes very difficult to actually think of what kind of exact negativity would be there in a particular place in the body, which might be causing some kind of a harm. However, the generic thing is it would be a non-beneficial energy which needs to be healed.
Absolutely.
Now, coming to our next topic is something which is very close to my heart, and it is the topic of psychic cords. Please enlighten us about this important topic in the energy clearing work.
Okay. They can be set up for many, many different reasons. And I kind of see them as very, very thin silver cords that attach from one person to another. Now, the classic bit is, let's say, the mother and son, the son is unwell, the mother will often subconsciously connect a psychic cord to her son to send him healing or to send her healing. Now, the interesting bit is to find out which chakra it comes from and which chakra it links to. The classic bit would be solar plexus to solar plexus to be able to send healing, from the, if you like, the far of the center, the far of your body, if you like, sending that across. But it could also be from a girlfriend and boyfriend, husband and wife. A divorce happens or they split up. The boyfriend will often can send a psychic cord attaching himself to his ex-girlfriend. And again, that can be perhaps from third eye to third eye, or it can be from a third eye or your solar plexus or your base chakra to her base chakra. And it's which sends some really, really heavy energy their way. So it's always very, very important. And of course, it's a bit then like an open telephone line. It can almost become controlling if you're not careful in that situation. Mother and son unwell, that's fine, but you don't want to leave the cords attached for too long. Once they've done what they need to do, they can become very draining for both parties. But if a girlfriend-boyfriend split up, it can be incredibly controlling. You can get some very, very bad thoughts sent that girl's way or her to the boy. They also need cutting so that people can start to lead individual lives once again, to take control of their energies, but also take control of their own emotional patterns too, because there will be a massive effect.
Right. Interestingly, I have not seen the presence of these cords only in cases of breakups and bereavement. However, I have also seen in my general healings. And I remember one of the problems which I was facing about 3 years ago. I was doing healing for a businessman located near to my place, near to where I stay, just in the adjacent state of Haryana. In Faridabad, he used to live over there. And he contacted me for some kind of a healing. And when we did the healing work, when the report was there, it said that, there was a cord running from him to some of his relative, and another cord from the father's brother to his particular solar plexus chakra. Now, when I sent the report, he asked me, what does this mean if the cord is running from my father's brother's root chakra to my solar plexus chakra? And this is something which I had not spent a lot of time contemplating about. So I told him, okay, I used my common sense and I said, see, if it is from the root chakra to the solar plexus chakra, maybe that the guy is dependent upon you or sees you as a person who is going to fulfill his obligations of food, clothing, shelter, or the basic things in life or security. Sure. And then what he said is very important. And what his wife said is also equally important. He revealed to me that he has been brought up by this person who's his father's brother because the father was no more. And it is his business, that means the father's brother's business, which he is handling. So whatever he earns, he first gives it to his father's brother, and then whatever he in turn gives it back to him, he takes it to his family. The wife said that, this particular father's brother is very possessive. Because of him, a lot of our money goes down the drain because he does all the work, although he has to share the funds with his father's brother. So this is where the problem was emanating.
Sure.
So there is a lot of metaphysical connection to these cords, and that interpretation is sometimes very interesting and varies from one case to the other case. And it was a very interesting case which
Absolutely
happened with me.
Yeah, you'll certainly find also that there's a lot of people come to me saying we are completely stuck, we can't move forwards. And of course, if you've got a cord attached to you, that's stopping you going anywhere. It really will. It can put a halt on your life for many, many months, years, until you hopefully find somebody to actually say, you have a cord there from heart to heart with an ex, with your mother, with your father, because when we bring up our children, we want to see them doing well. We want to see them leave home. But a lot of people then have that empty nest syndrome, the mum in particular, who, has no life or could never see a life beyond the children. The children then leave home to go to university. She's completely distraught.
Yeah.
And, these kids are there and they spend maybe a couple of months in university, give up the course because there's this massive pull back by the mother, often subconsciously, to have them back home. So it can have a very debilitating effect on many people. Right.
So I'm very grateful that you have shared very, 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 very important information regarding certain key pollutants. For example, we talked about curses today. We talked about spells today. We talked about, power artifacts and how they can be present in whatever used things or inherited things which people have. We also talked about psychic cords in detail. However, there are so many other things which a seasoned person like you has knowledge about. And I would definitely look forward that in the next year, we also have some interactions and talk about some other factors which affect people's lives negatively, which affect their homes negatively, which affect their workplaces negatively. For example, psychic attacks, for example, ley lines, for example, stress lines, disturbance lines, and a lot more. So thank you so much for being with me, Adrian, here today. And I look forward to our further interactions with you.
A pleasure. Anytime.